yeah, and we're here in a little bit west of the Boston area, and we're doing well. And I think I was telling you a little bit before. Um, basically during the pandemic, I was back in 2019. I had started another film, a fourth documentary, and I had actually traveled. Well, my son and I and our cameraman, we traveled to England and interviewed someone out there, and then we went to France, and then we traveled. We were filming interviews here back in the States, and then obviously 2020 happened midway through, and we got interrupted, and I didn't really know what was going to happen. We still had more interviews lined up that got canceled, and it was just travel was just about impossible at the beginning of the pandemic. So I still had the itch that I knew all these people, and I wanted to share the information, and I was learning all this stuff. Breath. I was really getting deep into breath work and the power of the breath, and meditation and all this kind of stuff, and nature, and the healing power of just being outside in nature. And but again, we were interrupted because of the pandemic. So I decided that I need to bring this information to people. I mean, people were scared, at the beginning of the pandemic, and I felt like I needed to bring some of this information to people. So I'm like, you know what, I had a radio show back in college. Granted, it was like a crazy comedy show, but I did do a show, and I loved it. And I wanted to bring the information to people. I didn't know what was going to happen with travel and the filmmaking. So, I started just cranking out interviews with people that have inspired me, authors that I've read. And, as you do, you just reach out to people, and some people get back to you, some people don't. But, so that's kind of what led me into the podcast that I've been doing now. So I'm following in your footsteps, Tom.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. As we talked about pre-production, Drew Pearlman's our guest today, everybody. He's a New England filmmaker and multifaceted, super cool guy who's he's a storyteller like us. I mean, we're just storytellers, and that's why we gravitate towards each other. But it's interesting to see that, the pandemic, I'm looking at the lemonade from the lemons. I mean, how in the heck can we get the lemonade going to everybody out there and get past all of that and move forward? I've read 5 books on the pandemic. And so I've got my own. Everybody has to come up with their own conclusions. I mean, if you have to do the readings and you want to subscribe to these podcasts, and that's one of the beauties of the podcasted content now, Drew, is you can drill down and find certain things. That's why I love YouTube so much. YouTube is just like being in higher ed, as long as I have been, and being a non-traditional student for all those years at Michigan State. I really appreciate the ability to learn from the YouTube place, and the podcasts that are out there, and all of the people that are out there that are doing all of this heavy lifting. And it's just fun. I mean, it's just cool as heck. So the 4 Faces of Transformation, that's a cool title. Tell me a little bit about that. We got about 2 minutes before we're going to go to break here, and I'd like to kind of segue from there into our other things. But I was interested. As soon as I saw that in the bio, I was like, where did that title come from?
It's a good question. That it's funny. It really has been a long time since we talked, because I don't think I'd even written that book. But it was back in 2016, and it was just that I think I finished it up and released it on Amazon. But the 4 Faces of Transformation, it's just I was seeing these patterns play out. I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, and very, very inspired by his mythology and how he sees these myths and how they repeat in different cultures and religions all over the world. And I was just seeing these patterns that kept playing out. Of the stranger and the addict and the lover and the visionary. And I was just seeing these patterns play out again and again. So it was this whole idea of these 4 faces that basically see that keep coming up, and that you sort of have to follow these faces to get to the other side of transformation, to make change. But yeah, that book was, it's like these projects, they're like, they call you. I almost feel like I don't, necessarily choose what I do. You get sort of called. And at the
Yeah.
time I was called to write something. Sometime, you're called to do a podcast, a film or whatever, but you get that calling and you just you gotta go with it.
Energizer Bunny, Drew Pearlman is with us. We're going to go to break here in a second here. This is going to be fun. So stick around, but I'm going to call this one Rediscovering Your Higher Self. That was from a bullet that Drew sent over to me. We're going to talk about that. How do we help ourselves get to that next level? We'll find out. Drew Pearlman. Be right back. All right. That was odd. Usually when I hit the space bar to stop, it gives me a little screen, but that time it didn't do it. Oh well. Hope it's good. Where the hell? All right. Learning this, I'll tell you what, man.
You think yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you.
Well, learning all my new stuff is just, it's crazy. And, but it's all good. I mean, let me get to my read here. I got to read on this segment. I got to read on the next 3 segments. So let me,
all right,
let's go in here. Your Ameriprise financial advisor, our Ameriprise financial advisor, Craig Stiles, can help you plan for the life you want today and well into the future. With the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. Please call my friend Craig, 517-483-4893. His email is craig.stiles@ampf.com. His 800 number is 1-800-528-1355. And his offices are located at 2400 Lake Lansing Road, Suite B as in Beism, Lansing, Michigan, 48912. Again, full disclosure, you guys have heard me, Craig's our financial fitness guru on the radio program, has been for years and years now. We have all of our savings, all of our retirement savings with Craig, 100%. So it's just like working with Brock, or Craig. We utilize our friends who help sponsor us because we believe in them. We trust them and they're the best. So please give Craig a call. He is the creator of Desideri Analytics, his proprietary algorithm where we are making light of weighted decisions. He came up with his algorithm before algorithms were the super cool word that they are now, and everybody uses them. Might even get kicked out of the Oxford Dictionary one of these days when, with the words that they get rid of because people overuse things. Craig was there way, way in the beginning. Here are some of the stations carrying the show, not carrying the show on broadcast radio in the future, in the past. We've been on for a long time now. So here we go. WGHN 92.1 on the lakeshore of Lake Michigan and Grand Haven, Michigan. First out of the chute. You guys are the best. You're always first because you're the first ones to carry us. You had faith in us. And I appreciate that very much. Will Tiemann and Wendy Hart and everybody in the staff at WGHN at 92.1. WGM 1240 AM in Lansing, Michigan, the big flagship of the Michigan Talk Network, which we are a part of. WJRW 1340 AM in Grand Rapids, WKLQ in Muskegon, Whitehall, WYPV, FM 94.5 Mackinac City, WKAR, AM 870 News Talk at our PBS affiliate at Michigan State University, carrying us on Sundays at 5. That's so awesome. Any station that would like to carry our show, knowing that our family is talk radio, please hit me up at our website, tommattshow.com, contact box, away we go. Remember, we have 4 books on Amazon, that thing called Amazon. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Gruber, Steve and Ivy, the owners of the Michigan Talk Network. Steve Gruber is one of the most talented on-air personalities around, and his wife Ivy is the brains behind the brains, just like Sandy's the brains behind our brains. All right, today, a friend of mine from way back in the day, been with us forever. Drew Pearlman's back, Rediscovering Your Higher Self. How do you like that title there, Drew?
I like it. I like it. It sounds good.
It's one of your
It's
points that you
important.
meant to me. It's really important to figure out what is your higher self. Some people, we get so
Mm,
locked in, for the longest time, my friend, I was talking about how we get on this carousel of life and we're on there for 20, 30 years, spin, 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 spin. We get to be like my age, maybe a little younger, get off, look at yourself in the mirror. You're 20, 30 pounds heavier. You don't like yourself. You don't like your wife. Your kids are gone. You've lost all your sense of purpose. And it's like, well, what now? And you may have
mm,
40 or 50 more years to go. And
mm.
hopefully you do. But what we got to do is we got to find people like you who can help us understand. Let's start it right at the top. You've already mentioned power of breath earlier, and you sent me that bullet. And I know that you're interested in that because you mentioned it earlier. Please open that can up, would you please? Let's start there. Talk about breathing and your meditation, please.
Well, it's very interesting. I think we live in a beautiful time in history right now, and there's a lot of technology. There's incredible technology moving at an incredibly fast pace, and the entertainment beyond. I mean, you can play video games, and you can live it. You can live the experience of the video game, and it's incredibly realistic. And this is for young people. This is for older people. This is for anybody that participates in all this media. But it's like Charles Dickens had that famous quote, the best of times, the worst of times. And I mean, I really think that's there's so much truth to that in a lot of ways, it's the best of times, but it's also the worst of times. And it's a difficult time. And I think it's a very difficult time to navigate because there's so much being thrown at us right now. There's so much media, there's so much distraction, there's so many things competing for our attention that it's really hard that we're constantly responding to all this stuff that's out there. And we've forgotten about what's in here, ourselves. And I think we're just so, I see it in the young people, and I don't know how I would navigate this technology because it's so addictive. It is so addictive. And you watch one video and then another video and this and that. And again, it's incredible content, but it's also it's also, one thing after another sort of taking us out there. And I think when it comes to like our higher selves, I believe it's really just, it's about, as one of my recent guests on my show said, and I think this is just a great way to put it, it's about coming home to ourselves. It's really about coming home. And
What does that
we
mean?
are, well, there's a great quote that I've always it's a good question, Matt. Like, what does this even mean? But this notion that we're disconnected. And coming home means maybe reestablishing some of these connections with ourselves,
Back to the
because
roots.
to the roots. But there's a great quote by a meditation. He was a former monk and meditation teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, and he was a Vietnamese monk. And he said something to the effect that you are the wealthiest person in the world, but you walk around like a beggar. And
Wow.
this is every human being. We have within us, in my view, I mean, we are, whether you want to call it spirit, divine, whatever your higher self, whatever word you want to use, we have something in us that is a miracle. I mean, we're all walking around as miracles, and yet we walk around like, in a bad mood, and we're nothing. And it's really just coming back to ourselves. Listen, I mean, look, and a lot of this is driven by the media, because, if we're made to believe that we're worthless, or that we need this drug, or we need this thing, or we need this and that, that sells product. Listen, if someone believes that they are like, they're high, that they're walking around and they're a miracle, and they're, and they're walking, they're living their dream, or they're living their higher self, they're not going to need as much stuff. So so that it's a big part of it. So that's sort of a roundabout way of saying, well, how do we return to this higher self essence that you know, that we all are, that the fact that we are the richest person in the world. And we have this incredible, and I'm not talking about monetary wealth, I'm talking about, you know, a higher wealth. But I think a lot of it is about, you know, we talk about breath work. I talk about breath work. I talk about nature. I talk about meditation a lot, but it's really, those are all just words for just sort of cutting ourselves off from the distraction and taking some time with ourselves, taking some beautiful time with ourselves.
We're going to go to break here in just a second here, and I'm going to let my friend take a breath here because that was awesome. We're going to talk more about breath when we come back here. Drew Pearlman's with us, rediscovering your higher self. I told you guys, you're going to want to stick around. If you miss any part of this, go to TomMattShow.com. We'll be right back. Okay. Can you hear the music?
I cannot.
You can't hear the music.
No, I don't hear music.
Okay, so that's interesting. So when we go into break, you don't hear the music of that. I'm going to tell Mitch about that. I can hear it, so maybe it's just on my end that I'm hearing that. That's fine. It's just, it lets me know that I need to cue my guests, because I'm assuming maybe they hear it and you're hearing music and going, oh, it's time to break. But with this new stuff, this has only been we've only implemented this new system for about 2 months now. All right, here we go. Yeah, you'll like Mitch a lot. Guy's unbelievable.
Oh, cool.
He comes from the same cloth as Ezra. Here we go. The simplest way to connect with us is via our website, all redesigned, TomMattShow.com, where you can find the redesigned, simpler page. Put a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of thinking into that thing. When you have a website for 12 years and you know what you do and don't want, it sounds easy. It's really, it gets a little bit complicated, but as you fine tune things, it gets better and better and better. You will find the YouTube buttons, big presence there. As you know, we're trying to build a YouTube presence there, so you can get little snippets of Tom, or you can get clips of our guests as we get the Tom Matt Show page going with that. The RFZ has been running and going well, and people are liking it. Our Facebook is TomMattShow.com, so is Instagram and Twitter. Our mission is to build an engaged society and team. We want to connect with all of you. So whichever social media is your favorite, please drop us a note and we will respond, because we respond to all messaging and we want your input. You got an idea, you got a thought, you got something you want to talk to me about, please send it over, TomMattShow.com, go to the contact box, away you go. The Refinement Zone is all about community, collaboration, and cooperation. Community, collaboration, and cooperation. The 3 C's of sharing stories and ideas, the RFZ. Just Google the RFZ and see what happens. Let me know what happens, okay? And see what happens with all of that kind of stuff, because we're really working hard to get into that next level. We've been working for this. We're in our refinement zone. Sandy and I are firmly in it. And 2023 is our breakout year. You know, overnight success, like my guest, Drew Pearlman, overnight success might take 15 years. Hey, that's cool. That's fine, right, Drew? I mean, rediscovering your higher self, as long as you're on the path, as long as you're making that progress to that end game, the generativity will kick in. You ever heard the term generativity?
No. I have not.
Okay, so we'll save it for another time, but just in a very quick snapshot, generativity is when, as you grow older, the bling bling has less ring, as I like to say. So you don't have as much of the, you know, the cars and all that fancy crap. It's like so the bling bling isn't that, it just doesn't ring as much. And so when you're giving back and you have that intrinsic ability to help others, you become a better person. And so that's what I'm talking about with generativity. And I'm going to turn you on to so many people now, Drew, that will come onto your podcast. Let's finish the thread of the breath, and then we can start talking about some of what you're doing with your podcast and some of the guests that you have and your skill sets with the gut science. And we've got so many things to talk about, but please finish that thread of what you're talking about with the breath. I'm very interested in what you've learned there, please.
Well, so yeah, you know, to take this down into a real tangible, kind of a tangible way. Yeah, absolutely. When it talks about rediscovering our higher self, or just sort of rediscovering our passion, rediscovering our connection to ourselves, I mean, it all does sort of begin with the breath, if you think about it. I mean, we're breathing all day long. And I have to tell you, in terms of my own health journey, you know, if we rewound the clock, I don't know, 5 years ago, I wasn't feeling great. I think my health was kind of, even though I was eating healthy, what you would define as healthy, you know, plant-based kind of foods, and I was eating the quote unquote healthy diet, I didn't feel great. I just felt like, you know, maybe a little bit of brain fog, maybe a little bit of higher blood pressure, and just some things and some gut issues as well. But I really feel, you know, I think there's a lot of factors when it comes to health, but I do feel when I started to sort of change my breathing, because I know I was more of a mouth breather. I know I was a shallow breather, and I think those are issues that if you have issues with the breath, they're really tough to overcome. Whether you eat a healthy diet, whether you go to the gym every day, if you're not breathing properly, I think you're in trouble no matter what. I think that's like that's sort of like the foundational level is the breath. And we could also talk about the mindset too. I think in the emotions and stuff like that, I think that's foundational. But
when you take the pause, and when you pause and you have actually you're thinking about this and you're wanting to bring it down a little bit, you're not doing that shallow breathing. You're spot on. Drew Pearlman's our guest today, everybody. Rediscovering your higher self. No, you're absolutely spot on. My friend Chris Johnson, who leads On Target Living, and he's just been a great friend over the years. He's been teaching this kind of stuff forever, and I learned it from him. And so you're spot on. So talk more about your health journey. What got you into the next level where you figured it out? Did you get some coaching, or did you just experiment, or how did you figure it out?
It was experimentate. It was just some experimentation, and just
were you frustrated? Were you frustrated with, because you're doing all the right things, but you're still not feeling your optimal self, and you know it, and it's like,
right.
Well, isn't that frustrating? It's like, God, you get mad at yourself because it's like, dang it, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. Right?
Yeah. Right. I'm making these green smoothies and all this stuff, you know.
You're checking all the right boxes.
I'm checking all the right boxes, but I know a lot of this was related to my breath. I was, you know, and you know, one of the big seeds for me, like, I feel like there's like these trail of breadcrumbs that but you just have to pay attention to the signs. But I had a dentist who actually at one point, you know, we were talking about dental work, and she was very progressive person, very, very ahead of her time. And she was like, you know, you should look into this breathing program. And it was like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about dental work. We're talking about blood pressure. We're talking about, and you know, the more you get into it, you realize that most of the most progressive dentists, the most progressive cardiologists, they're all talking about breathing, because it's all related. Everything is related to the blood flow and the health of the mouth, and all of these areas are related to breathing. And you know, I also read a great book that you might be interested in. And actually, I interviewed him on my show, James Nestor, who wrote a book called Breath. I think it's the rest of the title is like The Lost Science of a New Art, or a New Science, something like that. The New Science of a Lost Art.
James Nestor.
This is a fabulous book, and he really takes you through. And you know, so so at this point I started doing different breathing programs, and you know, and where you really get into the, you know, you breathe deeper, you breathe in through your nose, and you're holding your breath for a while, and slow exhalation out, and you do these
breathing.
Yes, diaphragmatic breathing, and you just increasing that lung capacity, and you're doing some breath where you're working on. I mean, the thing is, we use such a small fraction of our lung capacity that this is something that can be grown. I mean, we talk about going to the gym, but we need to go to breath gym. Like I go to breath gym every day where I do this whole cycle of breathing, deep breathing. You can do this in the backyard. You can do this wherever. But it's really growing that lung capacity, which can be grown, and it's training ourselves to breathe through our nose. And this is, this has had the most profound, I would say, effect on my health, more so than anything.
So interesting. Yes, it's in all of these. So you're right on target. Let me recap this thing, everybody. We're going to go to break here in a minute. So I want to rehash what my guest said and tell you, everybody, if you're just joining us, Drew Pearlman is our guest. Drew Pearlman is a friend from a long time ago. Rediscovering Your Higher Self is what we're calling this. Drew's got his podcast, and we'll talk about the podcast when we come back from break here. But he's an author. He's a filmmaker. He's been doing all the heavy lifting. He has been doing all of the work. And so as a functional medicine practitioner, he wants to get into the nitty-gritty for us, with us. And as he was just describing in his own journey, and this is very profound. I appreciate you sharing that, Drew. You can be doing all of the things, checking all the boxes, and maybe there's just that one little box that you're just sort of skipping over. What could be the breath thing? Why would that make a difference? And that one little piece is the thing to complete the puzzle. And that's what we're going to talk to Drew about when we come back. Again, Drew Pearlman, my friend from Boston, Rediscovering Your Higher Self. Comment show. We'll be right back. Interesting. You don't hear that music. I'm glad I asked you that. Okay, cool. That's fine. I started I know you probably heard it in the first segment. I started the Zoom recording video. And I'm just using this stuff just to practice because I need to get reps just to learn how to do the video stuff. And I'll talk to you off air about, your thoughts on the easy ways without spending a fortune to do this. I know you can do this. Zoom does pretty good. We have the professional Zoom, so we have that longer, buffer that they give us and all that stuff. But I never, ever, ever thought people would want to see a radio show podcast on video. Never. I'm like, why would people want to do that? But they do. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to find my own little hybrid thing. I got to see it first, as I said. When Mitch gets it up end of this month, it'll be rocking. But I think what I'll do is I'll just do thumbnails, and then I'll have the whole file there, the audio, because he polishes up the audio, and then maybe take a 5-minute clip out of the video and drop it in there so that people can get like a chunk of it or something like that. Like
Cool.
Kind of like what Rogan does, but on a much lower, scale. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good idea. And I think you're right on about the video. I haven't been doing video, but it's necessary and it's important. I think people want to see stuff.
Well, they want to see they'd like to see who they're and even if it's small snapshots. And so, hey, whatever, that's totally fine. Storytelling is storytelling. And who am I to decide how people want to take in their media?
Right.
My education is in technology. And so it's like, then when we started the company, it was like, I don't know how people want it through video. Do they want it through radio? Do they want it for books, magazine? Just try to be proficient at a lot of different things.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to talk gut health? You want to go into the podcast? We got 2 segments to go. Still got quite a bit of time, but I've still got, we spent quite a bit of time on the breath stuff. Do you want to go into the podcast, or where would you like to go? Because I've got Harmony, Rediscovering Your Higher Self, as we titled this thing. I
could go into natural strategy, like this whole idea of the best things. And like oftentimes we overcomplicate things. Like, if you can get outside, if you can breathe, all this stuff is free. It's like free of charge. It's like people can, sort of that empowering message.
And I want to, so I'm going to tie that into your podcast. I got to do as well, but tie it back into how much you've been learning from this and how it's affected your life. Let me get here. We'll get rocking. You and I could talk for a long time. Should set up
Absolutely.
another call and we can just talk and just have some time to reconnect and collaborate more. Cause I always liked your energy, and I know that we had that connection, and I feel bad sometimes.
Yes.
I had Joan Pagano on from New York, and she's like you. She started way back in the Boomers Rock days, early. And I hadn't talked to her for years and years as well. And it was just, when you have these good friends and you made that connection, you have that trust. It's like, and we're better now. Our stuff is way, way better than it was. I mean,
Yeah,
no question about it. It's the support from learning and other people. Here we
totally.
go. Totally. Brock Fletcher at the selling team of Keller Williams Realty is the man. He's the most trusted cat I know. He was our, again, full disclosure, buyer, seller agent for Big House Holt, Little House Lansing. He's an investor. He can give you an offer for your home. He can set a deadline for your home. He can tell you the price for your home. He's exactly what he did for us, for Sandy and I, when we did all of that. And let me tell you, the stress that was going into this was during COVID. So now we're in this new period where interest rates are going up, inventory's going down, inventory's going up, money's different. It's all of these newfangled ways of getting financing. And it's like, are we going back into 2008 again? Makes me a little nervous. Don't be nervous with your real estate. Get a hold of Brock, kwsellingteam.com, kwsellingteam.com. Both of our sponsors, several of our people, but especially our two paying sponsors who support us financially, are on our front page of our homepage, tommetshow.com. Go to the bottom of the homepage and click on those banners for both of those people and just tell them that Tommy sent you. When I give you these numbers, use this number right to Brock's pocketbook. Let me give you the office number first. Okay. First one is 517-853-6408. You can go online to kwsellingteam.com, kwsellingteam.com. Google search Brock Fletcher. Here's the super secret number. This is the key, everybody. 517-303-3262, 303-3262. Brock, right to his pocket. Text him, say, Tommy sent me. When you say Tommy, he knows it's coming from radio people and people who heard us on either the podcast or radio, because all of the people, for some reason, all the people at the radio station for all those years start calling me Tommy. It's fine. It's my name. I mean, I didn't use it till I was in kindergarten, but it's totally fine. Now it's even better because we know it's radio people who've listened to us, and I appreciate all the fans and everybody who supports us and they're loyal to us. The Bill Coase out there, and all of the listeners who are so dedicated to the show. I appreciate all of you. And I hope that you can, if you've got questions when it comes to real estate, if you've got questions about relocating, if you're refiring, if you're moving, if you're transitioning, go to our website, look up Brock at the bottom of the page and click on his banner or use that number I gave you one more time, 517-303-3262, Brock, selling team of Keller Williams, and he will take care of you. And lastly, I got to say, what up, Mike Deadman? How are you, buddy? I mean, I'm going to try and say your name every time. He was our buyer's agent with the team of Keller Williams. And so we love Mike Deadman so much. All right, back to our show today. Drew Pearlman's with me. Drew's a fantastic guy. He's walked the walk. He's done the journey. He's done the thing. He's got a teenager. I mean, that's got to be fun too. We can do that in another show. Rediscovering by yourself. Now we could do a whole show on teenagers, but we won't do that one today. What we're trying to do is get everybody pumped up to hear Drew's podcast and how Drew made the jump and how he was checking all the right boxes. And I appreciate you being so honest and so forthright with your journey. You're doing all the right things and you're still not feeling quite right. You're not an old guy. I mean, you're young. And so it's like, good for you figuring out the breath thing and talking to your doctor, your dentist to help you with that. But let's talk about the podcast and your natural strategies. Please go right ahead.
Sure. I mean, I've always looked at myself as as this notion that, I'm sort of the experiment, and we're all these walking, talking experiments. And, if it's not to say that what works for someone doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. So you see, you learn about eating a plant-based diet, or you learn about this diet, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But if you can kind of keep that experimentation beginner's mind, in mind, and really just sort of see yourself as an experiment, and not get down on yourself by saying, okay, well, this, maybe I tried the plant-based diet, or I went the paleo diet, or I did, this breath work that Drew's talking about. Well, maybe I need, and maybe you don't feel great. Well, maybe I need to try a different breath work or a different diet. It's a process, and you run into dead ends, and sometimes but then maybe you find something. And for me, as I was mentioning to Tom before, is that so many of these health strategies that I apply in my life are free of charge, don't cost a thing. As far as getting outside, simple. So breath work, you just need to learn how to do it. You just need to, you need to learn the nose breathing, the breath hold, and then you practice it, and like anything else.
Diaphragmatic breathing, because that ties into your gut health and all of that, all of it.
Absolutely, exactly ties into gut health, because, and it's the same thing with nature, getting outside in nature, every day, I think, is really, really important. And maybe seeing the sunrise or the sunset, and having that exposure to the earth's surface, maybe doing some barefoot, maybe not, when there's snow on the ground, but
I'm wearing my Vibrams right now, man. I'm telling you, I love my barefoot shoes. My Vibrams are key. I do, you're so spot on. Again, our guest today, everybody, Drew Pearlman, Rediscovering Your Higher Self. Now, you're saying a lot of the right things. And again, we are conditioned with this instantaneous, and we can't stick with anything long enough to have any meaningful measurement of improvement. And it's just, it's so incremental. You've just got to take the baby steps. All right. So let's talk about your podcast. Let's talk about why you shifted from big time filmmaker. You're a huge filmmaker. I mean, you've done big release, like films, movies. And to me, writing a book was a big deal. But to me, looking at someone like you, I'm impressed beyond belief of that talent that you have. And then you've taken that talent and you're channeling it into your podcast. Please talk about that. Let's promote that.
Yeah. Well, okay.
What's the direction?
So it's, originally the podcast was going to be called Living Against the Grain, because, that's sort of the theme of is in a way is the theme of the show, but the podcast, the Drew Pearlman Show, is, and again, I would, it's funny because, like, there's like a level of like, well, both of our, you have the Tom Matt Show, but it's funny, like, the ego gets in the way sometimes, and they're like, oh, Drew, are you really going to be this arrogant to call your show the Drew Pearlman Show? Can you think of something else? But, originally I was going to call it Living Against the Grain, but because that's sort of the message of the show, is that we need to be able to think differently. We need to do things like, things that we're talking about right now, about breath and nature. I mean, I hate to say this, but right now, these are sort of revolutionary, because most people are not doing them. And we think we need to give our power to someone else, and we need someone else to heal us, and we need someone else to help us. And sometimes we do need help. Absolutely. And community and friends, and, we need help along the way. And I must tell you, Tom, when I interview, there have been days where and I don't know if you've encountered this, there have been days where I've been pretty low, and I'll have someone on the show who just, like, please pick me up, elevate my mood, give me something, because a lot of these people that I bring on the show, I mean, they've written books, they've done breath work, they've done practices that have really inspired me, but and we just sort of bounce off of one another, and I feed off of Tom's energy, and Tom feeds off my energy, and some other guest, and we all sort of bounce off I mean, we're all energy, so we're just feeding off of one another. So
that's absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, it's a fact. The universe, we have this gift of the universe and the energy that we've been given, whatever denomination you want to follow with your spirituality, that's great. Fine. Okay. But basically, what you put into the universe is what basically you're going to get out of it. It's the karma thing. And when it comes down to it, if you're going to help people get better, and so many people help me get better through my long winding road of this life, it has been, and it's been interesting. So yeah, it's sometimes you come in and you're a little bit down. I've done the show long enough now, Drew, that after working all day and driving home from the university, it was like, man, I got to go do an hour and a half radio recording. Wow. But the closer you get to the microphone, the more you get to see a Drew Pearlman, the more you feel pumped up. Next thing you know, it's all good and it's fun. I mean, it's just so much fun to learn. Okay, we're going to go to break here. I'm going to carry this through here. Drew Pearlman's with us. He's a New England filmmaker who has made a series of popular documentaries shown around the world about food, natural healing. He has his new podcast called The Drew Pearlman Show, and I'll share with you when we come back, Drew, something about my putting the name on my program, because I had exactly the same feelings as you were talking about until I talked to my psychologist friend, Debbie Heiser. Drew sees his show as the antidote to fear, noise, and the talking heads in the news. I can see it with him. He's very consistent in his message, very just point on, point on, point on. I haven't talked to Drew in a long time. I knew it was going to be good. It is good. It's going to be great. Come back for the next segment. We'll talk more about rediscovering your higher self with Drew Pearlman. Boom. All right, bud. This is fifth segment, top of the fifth. This is it. And this is where I'm going to throw it to you for all your plug. So you have all your everything you want to plug, speaking, books, podcasts, all the URLs, everything handy?
Yeah, I mean, I probably just do the show, the show, because from the show they can find everything else.
Well, I saw that your Instagram stuff and all of that, and it's like, is that very hard to do with those Instagram posts? Because in the YouTube books, they're saying, you really want to be careful not to get distracted with all that. And
You mean those little those clips? You mean the clips?
Yeah.
No, I use a website called Headliner. It's simple. It literally feeds right into it, and then all you do is you make the clip that you want. You pick the clip that you want. It's very easy.
You just take a piece of the interview.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yes, I take something like a minute or less from it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's very easy. It's called Headliner. That's what I use, and it's yeah.
All right. Look into the Spreaker, and as we get done with this, we can set up another call, and I can share some more things with you on what we're doing.
Okay.
Here we go. I don't want to hold you up from making dinner, and I know Sandy's going to be ready for. We're pumpkin people, man. We go to bed early. I get up early. Same thing. Here we go. Here we go. If you're a nonprofit, school, church, or youth group, we want to spice it up for you with some talent. Please go to the website, tommattshow.com. Contact box is where you want to check and share up with us your situation, because we're accepting applications for live entertainment, speaking engagements, where I will facilitate adding some context to your gig. Bring in some pros like a Craig Stiles on financial fitness, or a Brock on the reality of real estate. They've agreed to come into these local gigs. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is a freebie, pro bono. So we want you to be a youth group, church group, school, anything like that, where you're just trying to raise some money for a good cause. We're down. If you want to pay us to come in for a speaking engagement, that's fine as well. But that's not the point of what I'm talking about here. That's what we want to do. We want to be servant leaders and continue to give back to the people upfront and honest. And just like, just like having Julie Reisdorf on last time from City of Lansing, and talking about building up all of the entrepreneurial things that are happening in this Midwestern town called Lansing. We're building really cool things that are happening. And if you want to be part of it, let us know, and we'll be happy to assist you in any way that we can. All right. Same with my guest, Drew Scott Pearlman, the man, rediscovering your higher self. Drew, how would you like people to find you, find the podcast, if they want to hire you for speaking engagements or coaching or any of that? What's the best plan there, my man?
Well, to find the podcast, to find my show, you just go to you can just Google the Drew Pearlman Show, or drewpearlman.com, DrewPearlman. But if you Google the Drew Pearlman Show, you'll find it and you can listen to all the episodes. And really from there, you can contact me. I love to hear from listeners or just people that have a question or anything, or that want to know more about me or the show or anything. My films are available right now. You can watch some of the documentaries. They're on the Gaia network, which is sort of like Netflix for spiritually minded movies.
A lot of cool stuff.
A lot of great stuff. Yep. So a lot of great stuff. So I've got 3 films there: The Great Lesson, The Healing Effect, and a movie called Fuel Your Health. So you can check all those on Gaia. And then my book, The 4 Faces of Transformation, is on Amazon. So you can get it there. But yeah, but if you go to the show website, you can pretty much get to everything from there too.
What have you learned from doing your podcast now? You've got quite a few reps under your belt. I looked at the website, it looks great. Everything looks solid. Looked at your social media presence, looks great. Your talent with storytelling is, well, it is what it is. I mean, you're a pro. I mean, so what's your big takeaway now with doing your podcast and this next phase of moving forward in what you do? Because that's what's going to keep you healthy. What's going to keep people healthy is just continuing to grow and try new things and experiment. And, maybe you got to move. You can't have any reservations and any regret about what we've done in the past, but we also want to look forward to the future and using that, all of our memories to fuel the futures. I like to tell people in speaking engagements, don't dwell on the past, leverage the past so that it can help build you into the future. So what have you learned building into your new future with doing your podcast? What's some good takeaways for the listeners?
I mean, it's like I know I've always had a passion to share with people. It's like, and I think we all benefit when we share wisdom, when we share ideas, when we share things that help us, because I think it even locks in our learning and it almost helps us take our game to a higher level. And obviously there's this whole ripple effect that happens in how we ripple through time and space. And I don't know who's listening to this show right now. I don't know who's listening to my podcast. Someone could hear something, it could totally change their life. I mean, we don't know that. We don't know who's listening right now. And
you got to have you're absolutely right. Because you're speaking into a vacuum. You may think that, you're sending this voice out in the universe and nobody cares and nobody listens. And you can get really deep. You can let that inner voice start to spin in your head and say, you know what, this show is not any good. I mean, nobody's listening. Nobody's sending. That's not true. You're absolutely spot on. The one person, and I've had more people come up in person than will send email. I'm just used to it now. I just accept it as it is, and that we are doing good things. So continue. If you ever start to doubt yourself on your projects and your programs, give me a call, because I'm here to help. I swear to God. I mean, because I know I will feel better myself intrinsically. Again, I'll feel better inside by reaching out to you, listening to you, bouncing ideas, because when you can talk through these things, might be from my long-term love of mental health advocacy and being in my own mental health journey, that cognitive behavioral therapy is the real deal. I mean, talking to people and talking through, it works, man. It's certain. So, I mean, did you talk about that in some of your coursework, because you have your certifications in the GAPS, the gut and psychology syndrome practitioner? Did you talk about all that? Because it had to be part of the whole process, wasn't it?
There's definitely some of that in there as well. I mean, a lot of it is related to, cleaning up the diet and the healing the gut and as far as the GAPS, the gut and psychology program. And that,
when you took that course, because you've always been a naturopathic kind of guy, and you've always done the full-length movies on natural healing and all of this, but what surprised you when you started doing your training with the gut science? What were some of the things that we went, I didn't know that, or just struck you?
I gotta tell you, so the GAPS was created, the gut and psychology syndrome program was created by Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. And I've interviewed her. I interviewed her on my show, and I actually interviewed her as part of the movie I was working on back in 2019. She was the woman we met when we were near London. We went to her farm. And I have to tell you, Tom, I've interviewed a lot of people in the health world, and she's at the top of the list. I don't know if I've ever, she is the really real deal. And she healed her son, who had some issues with autism, and which got her going in this whole journey. But she is, I mean, in terms of being a scientist, in terms of just knowing her stuff, in terms of being a farmer, in her incredible farm that she's created there in just north of London. Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. I can't say enough good things about her. So
that's on your podcast.
Website? Yep. If you go back, it's one of the episodes I did early on, and she had some serious things this was the beginning of the pandemic, and she had some things to say that were not what the mainstream media were saying. And like I say, she's the best of the best. She has some, she had to be careful because her view, a lot of these great practitioners, they had a differing view than some of the mainstream medical establishment, you could say. But again, just in terms of Natasha, she's the real deal, and just a great person, great practitioner.
What did she find, and what did she plan in your mind that solidified that the microbiome and the gut health is one of the key drivers that's so underutilized and so misunderstood or not understood at all? That what were one of the key takeaways from that experience with her as far as the microbiome and all of that? Did you have an aha moment?
I mean, with her many of them, but I mean, it was like, earlier in the early part of like the 1900 in the 20th century, I mean, science thought we were sterile, like we were mostly sterile, that a healthy human should be sterile, and that these microbes that we have trillions of them, that's almost the sign of like a sick human. And yet with Natasha and all these microbiologists, they just explain we are a community of these microorganisms, and our health really depends on their health. And it's really just about balance. Her whole thing is it's all about balance. I mean, you can go and kill anything you want. You can take a powerful antibiotic and an antifungal or parasitic or whatever. You can start killing everything. But ultimately, what happens is you want to create a balance. It's like a playground or any other environment. You want to have more good guys on the playground, and they kind of regulate things. So it's, a lot of our science modality here in the West is, well, let's just kill everything. If some pathogen shows up, let's just kill it. And if we kill the good, some of these good microbes, well, so be it. But and sometimes, of course, you have to deal if there's a serious pathogen or something. But also there's also another approach, which is let's try to increase the good players, the beneficial microbes, and on some level, by the way we eat, maybe some supplements, things like that, lifestyle, and let's create a really healthy, thriving environment so that the good ones really proliferate, and maybe they can actually regulate things. I mean, these things have been around long before humans. So maybe they can figure it out. And so it's really working with the microbes, because ultimately at the end of the day, we are far more microbial than we are human. I mean, they're running the show.
I got to wrap this thing, Drew, but I need a takeaway from you. Can you give me a minute takeaway from your first visit back? First time on the Tom Matt Show, no more Boomers Rock, but hey, what's your takeaway, my friend?
Well, it's great to be back with you, Tom. This has been a great experience in terms of diving into, what is our higher self and how we get back to our higher self, and really just living in harmony with nature, living in harmony with breathing properly and health and all that good stuff. It's attainable. It's attainable for everybody.
Thank you to Drew Pearlman for being with us. Sandy, Craig, Brock, Mitch. Love all you guys. We'll talk to everybody next weekend. Have a great week. Remember what I always say. always remember, before you can share love with others, you must love yourself first. Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. We want to bring your story to life. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you all. Good day now.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. That was awesome, man. And, I will get you. We're about 3-4 weeks out. Let me know when you want to record. I'm always game
Okay.
for. So just let
Okay.
me know how long do you need me for? An hour?
Not even that. We do like probably like about 35 minutes, 35 minutes.
Oh,
Well,
that's
30 to 40 minutes at
cake,
the
man.
most.
Cake. And I want to get
Okay.
you back in a regular rotation. So you
I
sounded
would love
great.
it.
And yeah, for sure. I mean, you're perfect for what we do, and you always were. And so I apologize for not staying, but now we're back.
No, we're back. We're back.
It's all good, man. So
All
good
right,
luck.
Tom.
Let's talk teenage. Let's talk about teenagers.
Oh,
Made a
geez.
note of that. And I got Natasha. I'll put a link to that in the recap. And anything else that you want me to put in your recap, if you got a couple of links you want me to, or books you want me to relay to the listeners, I'll be glad to put that in your recap. Just email me and I'll send them over.
All right, sounds good. I'll be in touch with you or Sandy. Yeah, I look forward to getting this
Appreciate
connection
been
going
great.
again.
I was excited to get, there was no downness at all waiting to talk to you. I was kind of like a little antsy. I was really excited. So it's
I
like,
felt
cool.
the same. I felt the same way. So, all right, Tom, it's great to see you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. See you, man.
Bye-bye.